Come closer and listen. I want to tell you a story that settles in the bones, a tale from a world of marble and empire, of incense and blood. It's a story about a city that could make you a god and in the same breath condemn you to a living grave. Imagine being chosen, elevated above all others, your presence enough to pardon a man on his way to his execution. Imagine the entire world bowing as you pass, whispering your name like a prayer. You are sacred, you are untouchable. You are the beating heart of Rome's good fortune. But this reverence is a gilded cage, and its lock is a vow of perfect purity, a vow that, if broken or even whispered to be broken, will see the same city that worshipped you seal you in the earth, walk away, leaving you to the silence and the dark. Tonight, we journey into the life of a Vestal Virgin, to understand not just the glory, but the terrifying fragility of being holy in a city that is always watching. Always waiting for a hero to become a sacrifice. Lie back and let the whispers of ancient Rome pull you in. You are barely 10 summers old, a child whose world is the scent of olive groves and the familiar warmth of your family's villa, when destiny arrives unannounced. It comes in the form of the Pontifex Maximus's attendants. Solemn men whose presence stills the very air. The household erupts in a quiet, frantic panic. Slaves, their faces a mixture of awe and terror, rush to sweep dust from the intricate mosaic floors, their brooms whispering against the tiles. They polish bronze vessels that gleam with a dull, ancient light, as if trying to make your home worthy of the gods themselves. You don't understand the reason for this sudden, suffocating reverence, but you feel its weight. This is no ordinary visit. Your father, a man you've only ever seen as a pillar of stoic authority, has been pacing the courtyard since the first light of dawn touched the cypress trees. His toga is a brilliant, freshly whitened white against his sun-darkened skin, his expression a mask of solemnity that fails to hide the glint of raw ambition in his eyes. Your mother has fussed over you endlessly, her hands smoothing the wool of your tunic so many times that the fabric feels thin and worn against your shoulders. Her fingers, usually so steady at the loom, tremble as she tucks a stray curl of your hair behind your ear, her touch lingering for a moment too long. A touch that feels like a farewell you don't yet understand. When the priests finally step into the atrium, their shadows stretch long and imposing across the floor. Their voices, low and resonant, echo under the high, painted beams. Speaking of omens and lineages, they don't look at your father, the master of the house. They don't look at your mother, the matron. Their gaze, heavy and assessing, falls directly, unerringly, on you. You feel their eyes weighing you, measuring you, not as a child, but as raw material, a block of pristine marble waiting to be carved into an idol for the state. They command you to stand, to hold out your small, trembling hands, to look them directly in the eye. You obey, your knees locking, your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. Behind you, the entire household stands in breathless silence. Even the fountain in the center of the atrium seems to hold its breath, its water trickling with a hesitant and certain rhythm. One of the priests murmurs something in a low voice, a string of words you barely comprehend: purity, bloodline, divine will, favorable omens. Another nods, his face a grave and readable mask. You realize with a jolt that sends a chill down your spine that this is not an inspection, it is a confirmation. The decision was made long before they ever set foot in your home. Your father's lips part in a smile of restrained, almost painful pride, though his eyes dart nervously towards the priestly retinue. For a Roman family of noble standing, it is the highest of honors to give a daughter to the service of Vesta, the goddess of the hearth. It is a public declaration to all of Rome that your bloodline is ancient, pure, and blessed by the gods. For your father, this means more than just honor. It means influence he could only dream of. It means invitations to exclusive gatherings, and a weight to his words in the forum, a subtle but undeniable whisper of power. For your mother, the emotion is far more complex, a tapestry of grief woven with threads of duty. Her smile is a tight, faint line, a fragile veil attempting to conceal a mother's heartbreak beneath a matron's dignity. She knows what this means. She is giving you away not to a husband, but to an idea. You will never marry. You will never hold your own child in your arms, never pass down the family name, never take her place as the head of a new household. You will belong to Rome itself, a piece of public property, sacred and separate from your own kin. But she says nothing. In this world, the choice is not hers. It is not yours, either. The Pontifex Maximus, the high priest, speaks at last. His voice is not loud, but it fills the space, formal and resonant, each word a carefully placed stone in the foundation of your new life. He names you as one of the chosen 6 who will guard the sacred, eternal flame of Rome. His words are not an invitation, they are a decree, a divine draft notice from which there is no appeal. Around you, your family, your slaves, everyone, bows their heads in submission. You try to mimic them, to bend your neck in reverence, but your stomach is a churning knot of fear and a strange, terrifying exhilaration. It seems impossible that these powerful men, their togas heavy with the purple stripes of authority, would look at you, a girl whose hands still fumble with a weaving shuttle, and speak of the destiny of an empire. But here they are. And here you are. And your world has just irrevocably fractured. The moment stretches, thin and taut, then snaps. Your father's hand is firm on your shoulder, not cruel, but insistent, guiding you forward. He leads you to the priests, who accept you as one might accept a precious, consecrated offering at an altar. You risk one last glance back at your mother. She has pressed her lips together so tightly they have turned white. Her eyes are fixed on the mosaic floor at her feet. She will not meet your gaze. She dares not, for fear of betraying a mother's weakness before these holy men, for fear of showing Rome that her heart is breaking. The slaves avert their eyes completely, as if to even witness your transformation from child to symbol is an act of unforgivable boldness. And for the first time, a cold question surfaces in your young mind. Are you losing infinitely more than you are gaining? The world outside the villa's gates is a roaring, chaotic symphony of life. Rome is never still, a city that breathes dust and noise. Today, it seems louder than ever. Traders hawk their wares from splintered wooden stalls, their voices calling out the prices of figs, olives, and imported spices. Donkeys bray under the strain of carts laden with clay amphorae. Children, their faces smudged with dirt, dart through the crowded alleys, their shouted games a fleeting, joyful counterpoint to the city's relentless hum. Yet, as your small, solemn procession makes its way through the streets, the noise around you changes. The roar shifts into a murmur, or ripple of whispers that follows you like the wake of a ship. Faces turn. Brows arch in curiosity and awe. The whispers spread like wind across a field of wheat, carrying words you can only just make out: chosen, sacred, fortunate. But you also hear the sharp, bitter undertones of envy. A woman at the edge of the crowd clutches her own child tighter, her lips moving in a silent prayer or perhaps a muttered complaint about the unpredictable favor of the gods. A young man stares at you for a moment too long, his expression a confusing mix of reverence and something else, something unreadable. Before his companion pulls him back into the anonymity of the crowd, you don't know if these looks are meant to comfort you or to make your skin crawl with 1,000 unseen eyes. The closer you draw to the beating heart of the city, the Forum, the more the immense scale of Rome seems to lean in, to press down upon you. The marble columns of the great temples tower over you, casting long, cool shadows across the sun-baked paving stones. The air is thick with 100 competing scents, the sweet, heavy perfume of incense drifting from nearby shrines, mingling with the more earthly smells of sweat, animal dung, and freshly baked bread from a nearby pastrinum. The weight of Rome, its history, its power, its sheer, overwhelming presence, presses in from every side. It's a physical reminder that you are not simply stepping into a new role, you are being absorbed into an institution older than living memory. The Vestals have tended the sacred flame for centuries. The entire city, from the highest senator to the lowliest slave, believes its very survival depends on their unbroken purity. And now, impossibly, that crushing burden belongs to you. Your new sandals, a gift from the priests, slap softly against the stone as you walk. The sound is small, childlike, utterly dwarfed by the dignified shuffle of the priests' heavy robes and the ceremonial clinking of the implements they carry. You glance upward once, catching a breathtaking glimpse of the Capitoline Hill rising in the distance, its temples gleaming like the marble teeth of a slumbering giant. You feel impossibly small beneath it all, a single, insignificant girl in a city of 1,000,000 souls. But you also feel a strange, disorienting sense of exultation. People stop what they are doing to watch you pass. They bow their heads. Men of great authority, magistrates flanked by their lictors carrying the fasces, the symbols of Roman power, step aside for your procession. They make way for you, a girl who only yesterday was no more than a child under her mother's care, a girl whose greatest responsibility was to not spill the water on the way back from the well. The contrast is dazzling and deeply unsettling. It's your first taste of a power you did not ask for and do not yet understand. When you finally reach the Atrium Vesta, the house of the Vestals, the very atmosphere shifts. The chaotic bustle of the Forum seems to dull. Its roar muffled by high stone walls and a palpable sense of sacred order. The entrance looms before you, its carvings solemn and ancient, its great doors open wide as if to swallow you whole. You hesitate for half a heartbeat, a flicker of rebellion in your chest. The world you knew was pressing at your back, a chaotic, vibrant, familiar place. The unknown, a life of silence and ritual, yawns before you. The priests do not wait for your courage to solidify. Their hands guide you firmly, gently, forward. The marble beneath your feet is cool and unyielding, a stark contrast to the warm, dusty earth of your family's courtyard. The silence inside is heavier, more profound than any noise you left behind on the street. It's a silence thick with the centuries-old scent of incense and the faint, ever-present smoke of the eternal flame. You take a deep breath, and the sacred air coats your lungs, a smell that is at once sweet and suffocating. It is the smell of your new life. Your father is permitted to walk beside you for these last few steps, a final, formal act of transfer. He leans close and whispers words meant to be comforting: pride, honor, the family's name echoing through generations. You nod because you must, because it is what is expected, though his words strike your ears not as paternal affection, but as ritual phrases, stripped of all warmth. Your mother is not permitted to enter. She lingers at the threshold, a lone, still figure, at the edge of your new world. Her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles are white. She does not cry. She will not give Rome the spectacle of her tears. You wonder if she will still set a place for you at the dinner table tonight out of habit, or if she will train herself quickly to forget the space you once filled. The ceremony of handing you over is brutally simple, almost cold in its efficiency. The Pontifex Maximus waits inside, his white robes gleaming in the filtered light that streams down from the open roof of the atrium. His face is as impassive as a statue's. Your father takes your hand and places it into the high priest's. In that single, silent gesture, you are transferred. You are no longer your father's daughter. You are Vesta's priestess. You are Rome's property. The old man's grip is dry and surprisingly strong. He does not look at you with the tenderness of a guardian, but with the heavy and blinking weight of expectation. The marble walls of the atrium echo his formal words of acceptance. Sealing the contract, behind him, through a doorway, you can see it for the first time, the sacred flame, flickering in its hearth, burning with a steady, eternal pulse that seems to mock the frantic, fragile beating of your own small heart. You stand there, your throat dry, aware of every minute detail of your new reality, the cold of the stone floor seeping through your sandals, the distant, hypnotic chanting of other priests in a far-off chamber, the flicker of lamplight, its hearth, burning with a steady, eternal pulse that seems to mock the frantic, fragile beating of your own small heart. You stand there, your throat dry, aware of every minute detail of your new reality, the cold of the stone floor seeping through your sandals, the distant, hypnotic chanting of other priests in a far-off chamber, the flicker of lamplight against polished bronze shields hanging on the walls. You are acutely, painfully aware that your childhood has just ended in a single, irreversible gesture. And yet, as your parents turn and walk away, leaving you in the heart of this silent, sacred place, you feel something else surge within you, something you did not expect. It is pride, a fragile and steady, but undeniable pride. You are not just another Roman girl, destined to be married off, her life a footnote in her husband's family records. Rome itself, the greatest city in the world, now whispers your name. The city calls you sacred. Your chest swells, and despite the tremor in your hands, you stand a little taller. You are a Vestal now, honored beyond all others, and the city murmurs your name with reverence. As if you were already a part of its eternal legend, you step into your new life, and the world rearranges itself around you. The great, carved doors of the house of the Vestals close behind you with a soft, final thud, and the universe that once belonged to your parents is replaced by a realm of marble courtyards, silent, echoing corridors, and the ever-watchful eyes of Rome's priests. At first, the silence is the most daunting thing. It's a living presence. The sound of your own footsteps echoes too loudly against the stone floors, a clumsy intrusion into the hallowed quiet. Every voice seems hushed, spoken in tones of profound reverence, as if any loud noise might disturb the gods. But you learn quickly that this hush is not emptiness. It is deference. People speak quietly here because they know they are standing on holy ground, and you, and probably, are now its guardian. The privileges of your new station unfold gradually, but with a relentless certainty that shapes your every thought and movement. You first notice it in the small things, the subtle shifts in the behavior of others. Slaves rush forward to part the heavy curtains of the atrium when you approach, their eyes dutifully lowered, their hands quick to clear your path. It happens again when you walk through the colonnades and see powerful magistrates. Men who command legions pause mid-stride to allow you to pass, men with rods and fasces, the very symbols of Roman justice and power, step aside for a girl. Draped in simple white linen, it feels strange, almost theatrical, as though the entire city has agreed to participate in a grand, elaborate performance in which you are, and always will be, the central figure. You realize with a growing sense of awe that this is no illusion. It is law. Rome has decreed that the Vestals are sacrosanct, and Rome enforces this decree with the full, crushing weight of the Republic itself. Even beyond the temple walls, the privileges pursue you, wrapping you in a cloak of untouchable authority. When you walk to the forum, flanked by attendants, the chaotic crowd parts for you with a murmur of awe. No man dares to touch you, not even by accident. To brush against a Vestal is a crime punishable by death. No one dares block your path. When disputes break out in the crowded marketplace, men jostling and shouting over debts or contracts, the clamor stills the moment your white-robed figure is glimpsed, voices lower. Hands drop from their aggressive postures, and hardened men who would draw a knife over a stolen coin bow their heads in respect. The mere sight of your white stole and the sacred ribbons, the vita, knotted carefully in your hair, is enough to command an obedience that even the city guard struggles to enforce. Rome's most ruthless senators and most celebrated generals would hesitate to cross your path, not for your sake, but for what you represent, the undying flame of Vesta, the fortune of the city, the fragile, ever-wavering patience of the gods. You are granted freedoms denied to every other woman in Rome. Noble or common, you may move freely about the city without a male guardian, an extraordinary liberty in a patriarchal society that demands wives obey their husbands, and daughters obey their fathers. No man claims you. Therefore, no man controls you. You feel this freedom keenly in the first few weeks, when you step beyond the temple walls into the teeming streets and realize with a jolt that no one is shadowing you with authority. No one is demanding to know your destination or your purpose. At 10 years old, you are freer than the most powerful matrons who rule over households of dozens of slaves. At 10 years old, you are freer than your own mother. The profound irony of this does not yet sting. For now, it tastes sweet, intoxicating. Gifts appear at the temple gates as if from nowhere. Wealthy citizens, eager to curry favor with the divine, send offerings of intricately worked silver bowls, linens embroidered with gold thread, or small, carved figurines of the gods. Farmers from the countryside leave baskets of their finest figs and olives, their humble offerings a prayer that Vesta will smile upon their fields and grant them a bountiful harvest. One day, you know, even emperors will kneel in the forum to praise the sacred order that you keep. At first, These gifts delight you. You marvel at the exquisite workmanship of a golden brooch, at the deep, shimmering sheen of imported silks dyed with impossibly expensive Tyrian purple. You are reminded at every turn that your role elevates you far beyond the grime and struggle of ordinary Roman life. You are told you live in luxury. Yet, as time passes, you begin to notice that these beautiful things do not truly belong to you. They are not yours to keep, or to spend, or even to give away. They are tokens of veneration for the office, not for the girl who holds it. You may wear them, you may display them, you may admire them, but they never truly feel like your possessions. They belong to Vesta. You are merely their temporary custodian. Inside the house of the Vestals, the privileges take on subtler, more personal forms. You are given your own suite of rooms, simple but far more spacious than the cramped, noisy quarters of most Roman families. The vast, sun-dappled courtyard garden is for you and your 5 sisters alone, its pathways shaded by colonnades where you may walk in peace, safe from the noise and interruptions of the outside world. Here, the fountain murmurs softly, and the laurel trees cast dappled shadows across the ancient paving stones. In these quiet moments, you feel as though you are breathing cleaner, purer air than the rest of Rome, as though the temple itself shields you from the city's smoke and chaos. Your bed is not shared with squabbling siblings, nor is your food measured out sparingly. You are treated with a quiet, consistent dignity, as though your personal comfort is as important as your sacred duty. It is not indulgence, but for a girl who once fetched water at her mother's bidding, it feels very much like it. The privileges extend even into the realm of law itself, granting you a terrifying and magnificent power. You are, quite literally, untouchable. It is written in Roman law that if any condemned prisoner, on his way to his execution, happens to cross your path and meet your gaze, he is to be pardoned instantly. His crime, no matter how heinous, is erased by your mere presence. Your footsteps alone can reverse a death sentence. The city has granted you this power, and it weighs heavily on your young shoulders, though you are still too young to wield it with considered judgment. You learn quickly that your very existence can alter the fate of others, and that awesome realization sits like a stone in your stomach. Power has been draped over your shoulders like a heavy cloak, but it is not a garment you can ever choose to take off. It is a mantle that grows tighter, more constricting, with every passing day. There are pleasures, too, small and immediate, that soothe the growing unease in your heart. You are given the best seats at the public festivals and the thrilling chariot races at the Circus Maximus. You are placed where the breeze from the Tiber River cools the heat of the day, where you need not crane your neck to see the spectacle unfold. At grand banquets, musicians bow before you as they tune their lyres, and poets recite verses composed in your honor. The rich smell of roasted meats and honey cakes drifts towards you, while the rest of the crowd watches you with open envy. The people murmur reverently when you enter a room, their voices rising, like a collective prayer. Even Rome's highest officials, the consuls themselves, cannot ignore your presence, for the flame you guard is considered older and higher than any political office. All this attention swells within you like incense smoke, both sweet and choking. You relish the way strangers bow as you pass, the immediate, and thinking deference in their posture. But you also feel their stares clinging to you for a moment too long. You tell yourself you are admired, revered, even loved by the city you serve. And yet, deep down, a quieter, more insidious thought begins to creep in, that perhaps what they see is not you at all. They see the robes, the vows, the mantle of sanctity. They see a symbol. You begin to wonder, with a flicker of fear, whether anyone will ever again see the girl beneath the white cloth, or whether she has already been swallowed whole by the goddess she now serves. For now, you push the thought aside. The city affirms your new identity at every turn, and for a child who has lost everything, this new sense of importance is a powerful anesthetic. The privileges are meant to make you proud. And they do. Though pride, you will learn, is a fragile thing, easily bruised beneath the crushing burden of expectation. The first time you attend the Circus Maximus as a Vestal, you feel the full, intoxicating force of your new status. The streets leading to the great stadium are choked with a river of humanity, tens of thousands of people pressing shoulder to shoulder. Their voices a roaring wave of anticipation that echoes off the stone buildings. Inside, the sun glints off the polished wood of the chariots, their horses stamping and snorting, their muscles coiled like springs, as their handlers struggle to keep them steady. The crowd swells, restless and excited, the dust of their sandals rising in a golden haze that blurs the edges of the city. You are not part of this chaotic surge. You are guided through it, a serene island in a turbulent sea. The crowd parts before you, and you pass untouched by their jostling bodies, escorted by lictors directly to the imperial box. Here, where others strain on tiptoe for a mere glimpse of the spectacle, you are seated where no sight is obscured, no sound too distant. The cushions beneath you are softer than anything you have ever known, and the polished marble balustrade is cool beneath your hands. The people in the stands below see you, a small figure draped in white, your hair bound with the fillets of sacred ribbon, and a wave of recognition ripples through the stadium. They rise in acknowledgement. Thousands of voices murmur your title Virgo Vestalis, some in awe, some in envy, but all in recognition of your sacred place. For a moment, you forget the solemn, silent halls of the temple and the endless duties that await your return. For a moment, you are just a girl at the heart of the world's most exciting spectacle. You inhale deeply and find no dust, no sweat, only the sweet, coiling smoke of incense burning in bronze braziers, drifting upward like the prayers of Rome itself. But hours later, the roar of the Circus Maximus fades into a distant memory. When you return through the temple gates, the world narrows again to stone and silence. The marble walls close around you, cool and indifferent. The colonnades stretch long and silent into the twilight. The scent of incense, once a perfume of privilege, now hangs heavy and oppressive in the still air. Spectacle, you realize, belongs to the people. Order belongs to the goddess. Here, there is no cheering crowd, no bowing magistrates, only the relentless and changing rhythm of duty. In the temple, ritual consumes your every waking hour, tending the flame, fetching the sacred water, preparing the ritual offerings. The sacred flame of Vesta burns at the very heart of your life. Every morning, long before the forum has truly stirred awake, you step barefoot across the cold flagstones to stand before it. This is not an ordinary fire. It does not sputter or crackle as common flames do. It burns with a serene, unnerving steadiness, as though it draws its breath not from the air, but from the very soul of Rome. Your first duty is to feed it. You carry kindling branches of a sacred oak, dried with ritual care, and lay it gently beneath the glowing embers. When sparks leap, you feed them with a slow, reverent hand, coaxing the flame higher. Your hands must move with perfect steadiness, for you are reminded daily in sharp and compromising tones that if this fire ever dies, Rome will believe itself cursed by the gods. The survival of the greatest empire the world has ever known balances on the quiet, precise motion of your wrist, the angle of your hand, the steadiness of your breath. After the flame is tended, you must fetch the water. It cannot be just any water. It must be drawn from the sacred spring of Egeria, and it cannot touch the pipes of the city. You carry it in a special clay vessel, a feudal, which is too heavy for your small arms. The rough clay scrapes your palms raw, but you do not complain. The water must remain pure, untouched by any other hands or lips until it reaches the temple. You balance the heavy jar on your shoulder, your muscles straining, watching the sunlight glimmer on its surface, praying that not a single drop spills onto the dusty path. It is a profound absurdity, perhaps, that all the great engines of empire, the disciplined armies marching across distant continents, the powerful senators thundering in debate, are all tethered to whether you, a 10-year-old girl, can carry a jar of water without faltering. But no one in Rome laughs at this absurdity. They bow before it. They enforce it with the power of law and the terror of sacrilege. So you steady yourself, plant your feet, and walk as though the weight on your shoulders is the weight of Rome itself. Ritual offerings fill the remainder of your day. You learn to knead the dough for the mola salsa, the sacrificial cakes made of salt and emmer flour, grinding the grain with a heavy mortar and pestle until your arms ache with a deep, burning fatigue. You pluck herbs from the temple garden under the careful, critical eye of the elder Vestals, arranging them in intricate patterns that you must memorize perfectly. Every single gesture matters. The precise tilt of your hand as you pour a libation, the arc of a bronze knife as it slices a piece of fruit, the exact way you set the bread upon the altar. If you falter, the others notice instantly. Their eyes are always on you. If you forget a step, you are corrected not with gentle patience, but with a sharpness that stings like a whip. This is not a school for girls, it is a training ground for priestesses, and the stakes are too high for kindness. Soon enough, however, repetition dulls the sharp edge of error. Your fingers begin to remember the motions before your mind does. The work becomes less a series of tasks and more a single, continuous rhythm, as though the temple itself has trained your body to move in a kind of silent, holy music. The house of the Vestals is alive with this rhythm. The older women move with a slow, practiced grace. Their white robes whispering across the stone floors as they pass. Their faces remain calm, impassive, but their eyes flit constantly toward the flame, the altars, the doors, always vigilant. You learn to mimic them, to suppress your childish restlessness, to still your hands and quiet your thoughts. The air is always thick with the scent of incense, mingling with the faint resin of burning wood and the sharper, metallic tang of bronze that is polished daily by servants. In time, these sacred scents replace the familiar smells of your old home. The sweat of your father's courtyard, the oil on your mother's loom, the comforting smoke of your family's hearth fire, they all fade, replaced by the temple's perpetual, holy haze. Time inside the temple feels different from time beyond its walls. Outside, men shout over debts, traders call out their prices, and soldiers march through the forum with a clang of armor and sandals. But within these marble chambers, everything seems slowed, deliberate. The sun passes across the sky, its light casting shifting beams through the narrow windows, marking the hours not with noise, but with silent bars of gold that creep across the floor. The shadows lengthen and shorten, the flame remains steady. And you learn to measure your days by the simple, unbreakable cycle of duty, morning water, midday offerings, evening prayers, and the long night watch by lamplight. You belong less to a clock than to a circle, a repeating pattern that has no beginning and no end. The duties extend beyond the visible world. You are taught the ancient prayers in whispers, forced to memorize them syllable by syllable until the archaic Latin phrases feel carved into your tongue. You repeat them as you grind herbs, as you sweep the ashes from the hearth, as you wait by the fountain for your jar to fill. These are not prayers of personal supplication, they are not meant to be creative or heartfelt. They are ancient formulas, powerful words honed over centuries, designed to appease the gods rather than comfort mortals. At first, you stumble over the unfamiliar words, but the older Vestals correct you relentlessly, forcing repetition until your voice becomes a seamless part of their ancient chorus. In the deep silence of the night, lying awake in your chamber, you sometimes murmur the prayers to yourself, a frantic recitation born of the fear that forgetting a single word might cause the sacred flame to sputter in your sleep. Your body learns the discipline, too. You rise before dawn without complaint. You learn to kneel for hours on the hard stone floor without shifting. You carry burdens far beyond what you thought your small frame could bear. There is no indulgence in weakness here. If you falter, you are reminded that you are not serving yourself, but Rome, and Rome, you are taught, does not forgive. In time, your body becomes an automaton of ritual. Your hands are already reaching for the kindling before the sun breaks the horizon. Your lips are already shaping the morning prayers before you are fully awake. Your body has become part of the temple's machinery, as mechanical and necessary as the altar itself. The other Vestals move around you like sisters, though not always with warmth. Some are kind, offering a gentle correction or smoothing your hair when it tangles after a long night's watch. Your lips are already shaping the morning prayers before you are fully awake. Your body has become part of the temple's machinery, as mechanical and necessary as the altar itself. The other Vestals move around you like sisters, though not always with warmth. Some are kind, offering a gentle correction or smoothing your hair when it tangles after a long night's watch. Your lips are already shaping the morning prayers before you are fully awake. Your body has become part of the temple's machinery, as mechanical and necessary as the altar itself. The other Vestals move around you like sisters, though not always with warmth. Some are kind, offering a gentle correction or smoothing your hair when it tangles after a long night's watch. Your lips are already shaping the morning prayers before you are fully awake. Your body has become part of the temple's machinery, as mechanical and necessary as the altar itself. The other Vestals move around you like sisters, though not always with warmth. Some are kind, offering a gentle correction or smoothing your hair when it tangles after a long night's watch. Your lips are already shaping the morning prayers before you are fully awake. Your body has become part of the temple's machinery, as mechanical and necessary as the altar itself. The other Vestals move around you like sisters, though not always with warmth. Some are kind, offering a gentle correction or smoothing your hair when it tangles after a long night's watch. Your lips are already shaping the morning prayers before you are fully awake. Your body has become part of the temple's machinery, as mechanical and necessary as the altar itself. The other Vestals move around you like sisters, though not always with warmth. Some are kind, offering a gentle correction or smoothing your hair when it tangles after a long night's watch. They might share a piece of fruit with you during the simple midday meal, but others remain aloof, distant. Their glances are as cool as the marble floors, as though they are constantly measuring you against an impossible standard of perfection. You are reminded daily that your failures would be their failures, too, if you let the flame falter. If your ritual is impure, all 6 of them would bear the shame and face the city's wrath. That intense pressure hangs between you, and spoken but always present. Camaraderie is always tempered by vigilance. You can never forget that the others are not only your companions, they are your witnesses, and potentially, your judges. Despite the crushing weight of it all, there is a strange comfort in its constancy. The endless repetition becomes a kind of shield, protecting you from fear by filling every moment with predictable and changeable order. When you wake, you know precisely what you will do, down to the smallest gesture. There is no space for indecision, no danger of chaos. The rhythm soothes you even as it confines you. At night, when you lie in your chamber and listen to the faint, steady hiss of the flame from the inner sanctum, you feel as though you have become part of something vast and eternal. Your heart seems to beat with the same steady rhythm as the fire. Your breath rises and falls with the same quiet constancy as the smoke drifting upward to the gods. In these first years, duty replaces thought, ritual replaces freedom. You learn to lose yourself in the cycle, to let the days blur into one another until you cannot remember when one ended and the next began. You are told that Rome's safety depends upon your vigilance. And you believe it. With all your young, fervent heart, you believe it. You believe that your small hands, steady on the kindling, truly hold the fate of the empire. You believe that without your whispered prayers, the city's walls would crumble into dust. And so you bend yourself to the rhythm. You break yourself upon the wheel of duty, certain that you are indispensable. As the years pass, the girl you were begins to fade, replaced by the priestess you have become. The marble walls of the temple no longer feel like a prison. Instead, they feel like the curtain of a grand stage. When you step beyond them, you feel the entire world rearrange itself around you. The bowed heads, the lowered voices, the powerful magistrates stepping aside. It all unfolds the instant your white robes become visible. In the serene stillness of the temple, you are only one among 6 equals. But in the chaotic streets of Rome, you are untouchable. The contrast is sharp, almost disorienting at times, but it serves as a constant reminder that your daily, repetitive rituals are not private acts of devotion. They are a public performance for an entire city that believes its survival rests upon your perfect and broken purity. The Forum is where this difference strikes you most vividly. The ordinary, bustling life of Rome freezes in its tracks when you pass. Merchants hawking their wares lower their voices to a respectful murmur. Senators, deep in heated arguments, interrupt themselves mid-sentence. Debtors on trial, pleading for their lives, pause with their mouths half open. Even men who moments before were shouting with fury seem to shrink into silence, as though the very sight of your white stola pulls the sound from their throats. Men accustomed to command, men who have led armies into battle, hesitate in your presence. Hardened veterans of foreign wars bow their heads. Young men, rash and full of pride, avert their eyes rather than risk the dishonor of an improper glance. It is as though the city itself holds its breath and leans away from you in awe. This reverence is governed by strict rules. It is not only courtesy but law that you are granted precedence over all others. The lictors of a magistrate, his bodyguards and symbols of his power, step aside when you cross his path, their faces lowered in deference. Senators who have debated for hours over petty slights will make way for you without a word of protest. Even the consul, the highest elected official in the republic, clothed in the full authority of his office, does not claim a higher seat when you approach. This precedence does not make you powerful in the way that Roman men crave power. You cannot draft edicts, you cannot command armies, and you cannot sway votes in the Senate. But it places you above them all nonetheless, a silent, white-robed figure whose sanctity they cannot, and dare not, ignore. Sometimes, this respect feels purely ceremonial, like a mask that the city dons for you alone. A man might bow deeply as you pass, but the moment your robes have vanished around a corner, his voice rises again scornful, mocking, dismissive of the official he was just arguing with. Yet, other times, it feels deeply, achingly sincere. You see mothers press their children forward just to catch a glimpse of you, whispering blessings. Under their breath, you see slaves kneel in the dust, not out of compulsion from their masters, but out of a trembling, desperate hope that your sacred presence might somehow ease the misery of their existence, whether genuine or contrived. The reverence clings to you like the incense that soaks your hair and robes. You carry it with you long after the moment passes. When you walk, the crowded streets clear. When you sit, the benches of the theater or the Colosseum shift to accommodate you in the places of highest prominence. When you ride in a curtained litter to a ceremonial procession, the crowds hush as if a god were passing by. You know, in the logical part of your mind, that it is not you they honor, not the girl beneath the white veil, with her private fears and fading memories of home. They honor the office you represent. Still, delusion is profoundly powerful. You feel yourself lifted out of the stream of ordinary life, separated from the masses who jostle for bread and wine, the men who sweat in armor, the women who labor in silence at their looms. You are placed above them, elevated without ever lifting a finger. The privileges of your position extend into the most unexpected corners of Roman life. You are allowed to own property in your own right, an almost unheard of right for a woman in Roman society. Your name can be used as a witness on legal wills, another impossibility outside your sacred circle. At times, you are asked to accompany magistrates as they perform public rituals, your presence a guarantee of divine favor. The city weaves your existence into its very legal and spiritual fabric, so that your absence from any major event would feel like a sacrilege, a dangerous omission. All of this makes you more than an individual. You become a symbol of Rome itself, a walking, breathing assurance that the gods are satisfied, that the cosmic order is being maintained. The public recognizes this symbolism with a potent mixture of awe and fear. Strangers murmur blessings when they pass you, but some also make a gesture to ward off ill fortune, wary of speaking too loudly near you, lest they bring bad luck upon their households. You are both revered and set apart, honored and profoundly isolated. Even when you are surrounded by the throngs of a festival, you remain curiously alone, as though an invisible circle the city weaves your existence into its very legal and spiritual fabric. So that your absence from any major event would feel like a sacrilege, a dangerous omission. All of this makes you more than an individual. You become a symbol of Rome itself, a walking, breathing assurance that the gods are satisfied, that the cosmic order is being maintained. The public recognizes this symbolism with a potent mixture of awe and fear. Off silence follows you wherever you go. You walk among your people, but you are never with them. You are a sacred figure no one dares to touch. Children sometimes stare openly, their innocence a stark contrast to the calculated reverence of the adults. They tug at their mother's sleeves, their high voices piping out questions. Why doesn't she have a father with her? Why is no man holding her hand? Their mothers shush them quickly, their faces flushing with embarrassment. But you see the genuine confusion in their wide, curious eyes. They are being raised in a world where women are never separate from men, never outside their shadow, never truly independent. Yet here you are, walking freely, your head held high, commanding the attention of an entire city without needing anyone's permission. To a child, it must look like the ultimate freedom. To you, it is beginning to feel like both liberation and constant, inescapable surveillance. There are moments when the respect is so overwhelming it almost takes your breath away. During triumphal processions, when victorious generals parade through Rome, their faces painted red like the god Mars, you sit among the senators and priests, your white robes gleaming against the crimson of their togas. Trumpets blare, the sound echoing off the marble temples. Captives from conquered lands shuffle past in heavy chains, their eyes empty and defeated. Carts piled high with glittering treasures find space in its roaring heart to cheer for you. You scatter blessed grain into the air, and they roar as though you yourself had brought about the victory. The general in his golden chariot basks in the glory, but even he cannot fail to acknowledge your presence. His eyes flicker toward you from across the forum, and he inclines his head in a slight bow, as though acknowledging that even his military triumph is not complete without your spiritual approval. It is difficult not to feel a surge of pride in these moments. The city bends toward you with such force that you forget your own smallness, your youth, your utter lack of choice in your own destiny. You forget that you are a girl who was pulled from her family and bound by vows you did not make freely. The respect is a blinding light. You feel eyes lingering on your robes, not with devotion, but with a cold, calculating suspicion. You begin to notice how silence falls in the marketplace, not only out of awe, but also because people are craning their necks, their expressions eager to see if you will stumble, literally or figuratively. And for a while, it convinces you that the trade was fair. You tend the flame, and in return, Rome lifts you above the dust and grime of its streets. You kneel at the altars, and in return, Rome bows to you. The elder Vestals, their faces etched with the wisdom of decades spent within these walls, remind you constantly that this respect is sacred, not personal. They caution you never to confuse reverence with affection, never to imagine that the city loves you as a daughter. The city honors Vesta, they say, their voices dry as dust, not the vessel who bears her name. Still, you cannot help but feel the warmth of their gazes, the hush of their voices, though in their gestures. Respect may not be love, but it fills a space in your heart nonetheless, a space you did not even know was empty until Rome poured itself in. When you return to your chambers after these public displays, the scent of incense lingering on your skin, you find yourself replaying the faces of those who bowed to you. The memory warms you, even as you kneel once again before the cold, impersonal altar. The world outside the temple may not know your personal name, but it knows your figure, your robes, your office. That knowledge hums like a secret power under your skin. You catch yourself standing taller, moving with a more deliberate, slower grace, as though savoring the weight of all that attention. For a time, it feels like belonging. Though deep down, a part of you senses that it is only the illusion of belonging, as fragile and ephemeral as smoke. For now, you accept the illusion. You lean into the respect, convincing yourself that reverence is as good as affection, that admiration is as good as love. The city seems to believe you are enviable, and you let yourself believe it, too. But as more time passes, as months bleed into years, you begin to notice a subtle but undeniable shift in the way the city looks at you. The stares of the crowd begin to last just a moment too long. The whispers that follow you never seem to fade completely when you pass. At first, you tell yourself that this is still respect, the same reverence that makes men lower their heads and mothers press their children towards you for a blessing. Yet, after years of walking the same paths through the forum, the sound of the city's attention begins to change. It is no longer simply admiration murmured behind your back, but something sharper, thinner, and much harder to ignore. The white stole that once felt like a suit of divine armor now feels like a beacon, a target. Its clean folds catch the sun, making you impossible to overlook in a crowd, so that wherever you go, Heads turn. You can never melt into anonymity. You can never walk among Romans unseen. At the games, when you sit in the seats of honor reserved for you, the people still cheer your rival. But now you also catch mutters from the rows behind you, speculative voices, dissecting your posture, your expression, your very breathing. She looks tired today, one might say. Did you see the way she smiled at the victor? Another might whisper. At religious processions, when the air is thick with swirling incense and the chants of priests rise to the heavens, you catch eyes in the crowd that are not reverent, but appraising. You are meant to be holy, which in the eyes of Rome means you are also meant to be flawless. Any flicker of ordinary humanity, a moment of distraction, a faint smile, a weary sigh is cause for doubt. The longer you serve, the clearer a terrible truth becomes. Rome does not grant you respect out of love. Rome grants you respect only as long as you flawlessly maintain the illusion of perfect sanctity. And it will seize upon any excuse, no matter how small, to strip that respect away. You feel it in the pregnant pauses after you pass, when voices rise again with a different tone, amused, skeptical, even predatory. The same people who bow to your face would relish a stumble behind your back. The same men who lower their eyes in your presence would raise them eagerly at the first hint of a scandal. Respect, you are beginning to realize, is less a gift than a constant, grueling test. And you are always being tested. The scrutiny sharpens inside the house of the Vestals as well. Your fellow priestesses watch you with the same unsettling mixture of camaraderie and vigilance they always have. But now you notice their glances linger longer, if you hesitate for a split second in your prayers. If you falter in your ritual movements, their eyes flicker toward you. They do not speak, but their silence is heavy with unspoken judgment. You learn to correct yourself instantly, to hide any trace of uncertainty before it becomes visible. You wonder if they do the same when you look at them, if they mask their human flaws with quick, practiced adjustments. You are all complicit in keeping up the impossible illusion of perfect devotion, and you are all each other's harshest judges. The priests watch you too, though their scrutiny is colder, more clinical. They correct your ritual mistakes without softness, reminding you in sharp, clipped tones that Rome cannot afford your errors. Their eyes hold no affection, only calculation. You feel like a precious, expensive vessel being inspected for cracks, as though they are waiting for a flaw to show so they may discard you before the city suffers for it. Each ritual becomes less about reverence for the goddess Vesta and more about performing with exact, mechanical precision under their unblinking eyes. At first, you tried to ignore the murmurs, to convince yourself that Rome's respect far outweighed its suspicion. But you begin to notice how quickly admiration and doubt can intertwine in the Roman mind. A woman in the market greets you with a bowed head and a lowered voice, then leans toward her neighbor with a smirk the moment you pass. Two young men hush their boisterous laughter when you walk by, only to chuckle again as soon as your back is turned, their voices carrying just enough for you to hear. It is not always intentional cruelty. Sometimes it is simply the city's insatiable hunger for drama, its desperate need to see whether one of its sacred, elevated figures will eventually fall. But curiosity, you learn, can curdle into accusation with alarming speed. You also begin to understand how rumors travel in the temple. You hear whispers before dawn, passed from one servant to another, of what people are saying in the forum. A Vestal glanced too long at a passing soldier. A Vestal took fruit from a vendor without paying. A Vestal touched the arm of a man she blessed. You know these are trivialities, likely fabrications born of boredom or malice, but the city repeats them with relish. By the time such stories reach the ears of the priests, they have already been shaped into something dangerous. The truth of the matter becomes irrelevant. The performance of suspicion is enough to warrant an investigation. This knowledge presses on you. During every public outing, you learn to move with extreme care, keeping your eyes lowered, your hands clasped before you, your expression frozen in a mask of serene piety. Yet serenity itself becomes suspect if it seems too rigid, too mechanical, as though you are concealing something. You cannot appear careless, but you cannot appear anxious either. You cannot seem too stern, lest they say you are bitter about your vows. You cannot seem too gentle, lest they say you are weak and easily tempted. Every glance, every breath, every twitch of your hand is weighed against the city's impossible, invisible scale of judgment. What once felt like freedom, the ability to walk unescorted, to move without a father or husband guiding your steps, now feels like a trap. You are free to walk, but never free to stumble. You are free to speak, but only in the solemn, measured voice Rome expects. You are free to sit in the best seats, but you are always under the gaze of thousands. There is no corner of the city where you are not observed. You cannot hide, even in the densest crowd. For the pristine whiteness of your robe separates you from the press of bodies as surely as a fortress wall. Even the moments of respect begin to taste bitter. A man bows a little too deeply, and you wonder if he is mocking you. A magistrate steps aside with exaggerated haste, and you wonder if his politeness masks a deep-seated scorn. Children gape at you in awe, and you wonder what distorted, scandalous stories their parents will tell about you when they return home. Every gesture that once felt like genuine reverence now feels double-edged, its sincerity impossible to trust. You begin to see the whole city as a vast amphitheater, with yourself trapped at the center, surrounded by endless tiers of eyes that never, ever look away. The respect that once lifted you above the masses now pins you in place like an insect on a display board. You no longer feel elevated, you feel exposed. It feels as though the marble steps you climb each morning are not a path to sanctity, but a pedestal from which you cannot descend without breaking. The incense that once smelled so sweet now clings too thickly to your clothes, a constant, cloying reminder of the smoke of your own potential funeral pyre. The chants that once lulled you into a sense of peace now echo in your mind like accusations. Where once you felt proud, you now feel hunted. Rome's gaze is not fleeting. It is eternal. And it is fixed on you. The vow of chastity you swore as a child becomes a physical weight pressing on your body. At first, it felt abstract, little more than a string of solemn words repeated in a grand ceremony. It was a promise wrapped in incense and ritual, as far away from the realities of the body as the stars are from the earth. But as months turn into years, and you grow from a girl into a woman, you come to understand it differently. The vow is not just an oath you spoke. It is an invisible collar clasped around your neck, unbreakable, tightening with every breath you take. It governs your every motion, your every interaction. When you pass men in the street, you lower your eyes, careful that your glance does not linger for even a fraction of a second too long. When you bless a child, you keep your hands rigid, touching them with only your fingertips, lest a natural, human warmth be mistaken for an unseemly tenderness. When you sit among the magistrates at the games, you hold yourself with a cold, untouchable dignity, acutely aware that even a spontaneous laugh might invite suspicion. Innocent gestures become dangerous. Casual moments feel like traps set for you by a suspicious world. It is not enough to be chaste. You must also look chaste. You must perform chastity, embody it so completely that no one could even imagine you otherwise. The weight of this performance grows heavier as you age. At 10, the vow was easy. Your body was still childlike, your mind too informed to truly grasp the complexities of desire. But as adolescence blooms within you, the city notices. And you notice. Your body no longer belongs only to you, it belongs to the vow. Your hips widen, your breasts form, your face loses its childish softness. These natural changes, which in another girl would be celebrated as the beautiful approach of womanhood and marriage, are in you regarded with a quiet, intense suspicion. Where others see fertility, Rome sees danger. You are reminded constantly, through stories and sharp warnings from the elder Vestals, that desire, even unspoken, would be ruinous. It doesn't matter if no act were ever committed. It doesn't matter if no whisper of truth ever existed. The mere possibility of impurity is enough to destroy you. This intense vigilance extends into your own thoughts, and you begin to police your own imagination. If a soldier's gaze lingers on you for a moment, you stiffen, your heart pounding. If you catch the scent of oil and sweat from a man passing too close in the crowded street, you turn your head sharply, fearing even the hint of your own awareness. In your dreams, when your body betrays you with sensations you cannot control, you wake with a guilt as sharp and cold as a knife in your chest. You pray longer and harder at the altar, begging the goddess not to hold against you the involuntary accidents of sleep. You start to feel that your own skin is a liability, a fragile shell ready to condemn you at the first sign of human weakness. The older Vestals, your sisters in the temple, remind you of your burden with a quiet, relentless severity. They tell stories, always in hushed tones, of sisters from generations past who were accused. Their names were stripped of sanctity, they were dragged into a public trial, and they were condemned. And you realize with a sudden, painful clarity that yours does not. You tend the flame, you perform the rites, but all of it is done in the service of Rome's survival, not your own. Your vow has transformed you from a girl into a symbol. And symbols cannot hunger, cannot desire, cannot break. You hear the stories of others who were accused, their names spat like curses in the forum, their bodies dragged into a silent, earthen grave. The stories do not speak of mercy, for there was none to be had. Some were buried alive in a chamber beneath the earth, others were exiled, and all of them were erased from the temple's official memory, save for these whispered, cautionary warnings. You realize with a cold certainty that chastity is not simply a private vow between you and the goddess. It is a public performance demanded by an entire city, enforced by the harshest penalties that the Roman mind can imagine. But Rome is not a city that needs truth before it passes judgment. Rome thrives on whispers. And a whisper does not have to be true to be fatal. It begins so quietly you almost miss it. A whisper that calls itself around your name. Perhaps it is born of an enemy's envy, someone who resents the prestige your service has brought to your family. Perhaps it is the casual malice of a neighbor, eager to tug down someone who has been placed so high above them. The sacred flame must not die, and neither must your purity. If one falters, the city believes, both will falter, and catastrophe will surely follow. Even when you travel beyond Rome's walls for religious ceremonies, you feel the pressure of this scrutiny. Crowds in the countryside press forward, not to celebrate your presence, but to examine you. Farmers, artisans, slaves, they all stare as though they are measuring you, weighing your worth, searching your face for the slightest flaw. Their gaze is a constant, physical reminder that your body is no longer your own private vessel. It has become a public symbol of the empire's fortune, as sacred and as vulnerable as the flame itself. And symbols cannot have desires. They cannot falter. They cannot indulge in the messy, unpredictable humanity that pulses just beneath their surface. The vow reshapes your relationships too. You learn to keep a careful distance from your fellow Vestals, even as you live beside them day and night. Overt affection is discouraged, and intimacy is frowned upon. If you linger in conversation with another girl for too long, if your hand rests against her shoulder in a gesture of comfort, eyes turn, and whispers might follow. You withdraw into yourself, not because you want to, but because you must. The vow makes you solitary. Even within the communal house of the Vestals, you are surrounded always by others, but you are profoundly, terrifyingly alone, locked within the narrow, ever watchful confines of your own body. You come to understand how Rome wields your vow as a weapon. A powerful man's ambition can ruin you with nothing more than a carefully planted whisper. An enemy of your family can point a finger, and the Pontifex Maximus will be forced to investigate, lest he seem weak or impious. You have no real defense, because innocence is impossible to prove. Purity is not a visible quality, but guilt can be imagined with terrifying ease. And once the accusation is voiced, it spreads like smoke in a dry field, carried on the tongues of those eager for scandal and drama. The vow does not shield you. It makes you vulnerable. It makes you the easiest target for envy, for political rivalry, or for simple, baseless malice. Over time, you learn to move with an unnatural stillness, to cloak yourself in a composure so complete it feels like a second skin. You laugh less, you speak less, you even learn to breathe more quietly. You train the muscles of your face to form a mask of serene piety, even when fear is gnawing at your stomach. You feel like a statue, carved not by the hands of an artisan, but by the relentless, judgmental gaze of the city itself. Your body becomes marble, not flesh, sculpted into something cold, perfect, and unchanging. And like marble, you know that once a crack appears, It can never again be hidden. There are moments, often during public festivals when the air is thick with the smell of spilled wine and the crowd shouts with unrestrained joy, when the weight is nearly unbearable. You watch couples laughing together, their hands intertwined. You hear men boasting of their romantic conquests and women gossiping freely, without fear of judgment. Their lives may be hard, filled with labor and uncertainty, but they belong to themselves. For a long time, you think of these stories as warnings that belong to other women, women who were careless or unlucky. They are cautionary tales meant to remind you of the importance of vigilance, not prophecies of a fate you might one day share. You tell yourself that your composure, your meticulous carefulness, your endless repetition of prayers will keep you safe. You are different. You are stronger. Perhaps it is nothing more than idle, bored speculation, sparked by a glance or a gesture that was completely misunderstood. The origin, you will soon learn, matters far less than its existence. Once spoken, a whisper takes on a life of its own. It slides between conversations in the bathhouses, it clings to the humid air in the forum, it threads itself into the idle chatter of the markets. You hear it repeated in tones that are both hushed and gleeful, and you realize with a cold, sinking dread that the city enjoys the idea of your fall, the first time the rumor reaches you directly. It comes from a slave girl hurrying past you with her master's purchases. She does not meet your eyes, but her lips twitch as she mutters something under her breath that you barely catch. It is your name, laced with a greasy insinuation, spoken as though it is already tarnished. You feel a hot surge of anger and want to stop her, to demand she repeat what she said, to demand clarity. But your dignity, the very thing you are accused of losing, forbids it. You walk on, each step heavier than the last, the flame you tend in the temple still burning, the prayers still falling from your lips. You wonder if their lowered eyes are concealing smirks. The gestures of respect that once reassured you and made you feel proud now feel like a hollow stage act. Concealing a deep well of mockery just beneath the surface, you search yourself, your every memory. For the cause, you lie awake at night, replaying every public appearance, every ritual, every chance encounter. But you feel the weight of that one stray comment pressing on your shoulders like a shroud of lead. In the days that follow, the whisper grows louder. You feel it in the pauses that stretch just a moment too long when you pass through the forum. You see it in the way conversations falter, only to resume in more animated tones after you have moved beyond earshot. You hear laughter that is cut short, replaced by a feigned, exaggerated reverence. The bowing of heads continues, but now, when you look at the people, did I glance too long at a soldier as he passed by the temple gates? Did my hand brush too closely against another's during a ritual? Did I smile when I should have remained solemn? Each possibility blooms in your mind like a poisonous flower, replaying endlessly. You try to recall every moment of the past months, every expression, every word. The effort is futile, maddening, but you cannot stop. The vow you carry was already heavy, now it has become an unbearable weight, because you realize that innocence itself offers no defense. The city does not require evidence. The city requires only the delicious thrill of suspicion. Your fellow Vestals grow quiet and distant around you. They still move through the same rituals, their faces as serene and practiced as always, but you sense the shift in the atmosphere. Their glances are sharper now, their silence is longer. One of them hesitates for a fraction of a second before handing you a sacred vessel, as though she fears the clay might crack in your tainted hands. Another corrects you too quickly when you stumble over a word in a prayer, her voice sharper, colder than before. None of them accuse you openly. That would be a breach of their own duty, yet you feel the distance widening between you with every passing hour. They fear that your fall could drag them down as well, and so they begin to shield themselves from you with a cold, impenetrable formality. The fragile warmth that once flickered between you in the quiet moments of your shared life is extinguished. The priests notice, too. Their corrections during rituals grow harsher, their inspections of your work more pointed and critical. They ask you to repeat your prayers again and again, their eyes narrowing at the faintest hesitation in your voice. A trial is announced, not because any new evidence has been found, but because the proper procedure must be satisfied. Rome must maintain its solemn theater of justice. The Pontifex Maximus himself will preside, for no ordinary magistrate may sit in judgment over a Vestal Virgin. The senators will gather, not to weigh the truth, but to enact the ancient ceremony that Rome demands. You are summoned, and there is no choice in the matter. They watch how you move, how you carry the water, how you bow before the flame. You feel their judgment pressing against your skin like a physical force, waiting for the slightest crack in your composure to justify what the city is already whispering. The scrutiny that once felt like a necessary part of your holy vigilance now feels like a hunt. You begin to avoid the streets, hoping to escape the stares and the whispers. The day begins like any other, with the sacred flame still burning, a steady, indifferent heart in the temple. But this morning, you are not permitted to tend it. Another's hands feed the kindling. Another's lips whisper the prayers you know by heart. You are led instead out into the open air, past the marble colonnades that once seemed so protective but now feel like the corridors of your own exile. But avoidance itself is suspicious. Your absence becomes fuel for further rumor. If you do not appear at the markets, tongues wag that you are hiding your shame. If you keep to the confines of the temple, they say you can no longer bear to face the righteous eyes of Rome. If you force yourself to smile during public ceremonies, they say it is the defiant smile of guilt. If you look stern and solemn, they say it is the mask of concealment. Every gesture, every absence, every silence is interpreted against you. The city that once revered you now delights in watching you unravel at night, when you lie awake in your cold, silent chamber. You hear the whisper echoing even through the thick marble walls. It slithers through your mind, repeating your name, always attached to the accusation. You pray longer, you tend the flame with a trembling, desperate precision, but the certainty of your doom eats at you. The goddess may know your innocence, but the city does not care what the goddess knows. Rome cares only for the spectacle of punishment, the grim reassurance that it can still sacrifice one of its own in the name of purity. The rumors begin to take on specific, lurid details you do not recognize. People speak of secret meetings in moonlit gardens, of stolen glances across the forum, of passionate lovers whose names you have never even heard. The stories grow like weeds, sprouting new and more scandalous variations each time they are repeated. Some say you were betrayed by a lover who grew jealous. Others say you were seduced by an enemy of the state, a conspirator against Rome itself. Still others claim that you have already confessed, though you have never spoken a single word in your own defense. Truth has become irrelevant. Narrative is everything. And the city of Rome loves the story of a great downfall far more than it loves the quiet and interesting truth. Your family visits less and less often. When they do, their words are stiff and formal, their smiles forced and brittle. You see a cold fear in your father's eyes, not for you, but for the family's name, which your scandal now threatens to stain. You see a deep, bottomless sorrow in your mother's expression, though she hides it well behind a mask of patrician dignity. You are reminded, in the most brutal way possible, that your life was given over to Rome on the day you were chosen. And now, your fall threatens to tarnish them all. Their emotional distance cuts you deeper than any of the city's whispers. The temple walls, which once felt so protective, now feel like the walls of a tomb you inhabit while still alive. Then, the moment you have been dreading finally comes. The whisper is no longer merely a rumor. It is a formal accusation. A priest speaks your name in a solemn council, repeating what he has heard on the streets. He does not call it evidence, but his tone carries the full weight of judgment. The Pontifex Maximus listens, his expression grave and unreadable. And you know in that instant, with a clarity that freezes your blood, that your innocence does not matter. The great, impersonal machinery of Roman justice has begun to turn. And once it starts turning, it does not stop. The flame you have tended so faithfully for years still burns brightly in the temple, but your place beside it has already vanished into smoke. Overnight, you are transformed. You are no longer sacred. You are only suspect. One day, the city bowed before you. The next, it stares with open, hungry suspicion, and Rome, which was once a chorus of reverence, wastes no time in turning a whisper into a ritual of condemnation. The forum looms ahead, its stones painfully bright in the morning sun, its air already buzzing with the voices of an expectant crowd. The people are clustered in groups, their heads turning as one as you pass. Their whispers are no longer cautious or hidden. They do not avert their eyes now. They want to watch. The senators nod gravely as the pontifex speaks, their eyes unfocused. They are not judging you. They are witnessing a ritual. They are preserving the dignity of Rome by ensuring that a scapegoat is found. You wait for a chance to speak, for some moment when the truth might matter, when your voice might be heard, but that moment never comes. He does not invite any explanation. He simply states that suspicion alone is enough, that Rome cannot afford to harbor any doubt in its holiest guardians. His words strike you like cold iron, each syllable measured and heavy. You wait for a pause, for some chance to speak, to scream, to protest, but it does not come. Your lips remain closed, your throat tight with tears, because to interrupt this solemn ritual would be an act of sacrilege, and sacrilege would only confirm their judgment. The procession moves with a slow, deliberate gravity. Priests flank you on either side, their faces impassive stone masks, their robes heavy with the weight of their solemnity. You walk with your head bowed not from reverence, but because to look outward would be to see the raw, predatory hunger in the faces of those who line the streets. They have not gathered for your defense, nor for your comfort. You force yourself to hold still, to maintain the perfect composure that was drilled into you during your years of ritual training. Your hands remain clasped at your sides, your expression calm, your posture upright, but inside, your heart is pounding so loudly you are certain they must all hear it. You remind yourself that to falter now, they have gathered for the spectacle. Rome thrives on spectacle, and your downfall is a kind of dark, religious festival. The weight of your white robes feels unbearable, as though they are mocking you with the very purity you are accused of betraying. Inside the Curia, the Senate house, the air is thick with the smells of incense, laurel, and judgment. To show any weakness would be to prove them right. You remind yourself that dignity is the only shield you have left. Yet dignity feels as thin as papyrus against the crushing weight of so many eyes, against the ritual certainty that is pressing on you from all sides. As the proceedings continue, you notice how little the senators actually look at you. The chamber is filled with the sweat of powerful men gathered not to debate the laws of the empire, but to watch a single life be decided. The senators sit in their curul chairs, their faces grave but strangely distant, as if your presence here is little more than another tedious item on the day's agenda. Their togas ripple with folds of white, their purple stripes marking their high rank, but not one of them looks at you with anything resembling compassion in their eyes. The Pontifex Maximus raises his hand again, and the murmurs quiet once more. His eyes sweep the chamber, not to seek opinion, but to affirm the consensus that has already been reached. He speaks of Rome's dignity, of Vesta's sanctity, of the grave danger posed by impurity in the sacred hearth. His words are not for you. You are no longer a daughter of Rome, no longer a sacred servant of Vesta. You are an accusation given flesh. The Pontifex Maximus presides from the center, his chair elevated, his expression carved from the same cold marble as the walls. He raises a hand, and the chamber falls into a sudden, profound silence. His voice, when he speaks, carries easily, a voice practiced from years of pronouncing judgments, of binding ritual to law. He names you, and then he speaks the charge, attaching the sacred title you once bore to the crime that now clings to you like rot. The contrast is stark, brutal. Only weeks ago, that title placed you above magistrates and generals. Now, it serves only to damn you, a constant reminder of the height from which you have fallen. His words are measured, deliberate, spoken not to discover the truth, but to confirm a conclusion already reached. You stand before them, a lone girl surrounded by men whose lives stretch far beyond yours, men who have sired children, commanded armies, and spoken in the forum for decades. You are still young, not yet fully grown into the body that Rome already condemns. Yet you are placed before them as an equal, not because your voice is valued, but because your guilt must be made public and visible. Other priests are called to recount the whispers they have heard, and they repeat them as if they are established facts, They name no evidence. They present no witnesses beyond rumor. Yet their words fall with the weight of stone. The senators murmur their approval. They are for the Senate, for the people gathered beyond the walls, for history itself. You are present only as a symbol, the necessary sacrifice that proves Rome remains vigilant. The longer he speaks, the more certain it becomes that this is not a trial at all. It is a ceremony of condemnation. When he finally turns to you, his cold, impassive expression does not change. He does not ask if you are guilty or innocent, some stroking their beards thoughtfully, others glancing toward the growing crowd outside. Their concern is not for you, but for Rome's reputation, for the preservation of the goddess's honor, for the maintenance of the illusion that the sacred flame remains untainted. You realize, as their voices drone on and on, that your fate was sealed long before you ever entered this chamber. They speak of you, but as though you are not present, as though you are already absent, already erased, a lesson rather than a person. Your name passes from mouth to mouth, stripped of all warmth, transformed into an example to be held up against the city's deepest fears. You are not allowed to answer the accusations. You are not invited to defend yourself. Your silence is not a right. It is a condition imposed upon you, a silence that reinforces the presumption of your guilt. The senators nod one last time, some with a flicker of reluctance, others with the quiet satisfaction of a difficult duty fulfilled. The verdict is not announced with fanfare. It is not shouted or debated. It is spoken with the calm, chilling inevitability of something long decided. You stand in the suffocating silence, your hands now trembling just enough to betray you, as the Pontifex Maximus pronounces your fate. Faces in the crowd blur together. Some are openly hostile, their mouths curled in sneers, their eyes bright with a vindictive pleasure. Others are solemn, their lips pressed together as though in mourning. Still others simply watch with a blank, animal curiosity, their expressions unreadable. Shame burns your skin where their gazes fall. Yet you also sense a flicker of pity in some eyes, however fleeting. The chamber does not erupt. There is no outcry, only the low murmur of agreement, the steady nods, the grave expressions that mask a city's collective relief. The verdict has been delivered. The scapegoat has been chosen. And Rome can be pure again. Rome does not bury its scandals in silence. Rome loves spectacle, even a spectacle cloaked in the somber robes of piety. The trial was only the prelude. The true performance begins with your punishment. You are led through the silent streets, the same priests at your side. This procession has none of the triumphal fanfare that greets victorious generals, yet it draws the same eager crowds. Citizens abandon their shops and workshops to watch, drawn not by joy, but by a curiosity that has been sharpened into a hungry, predatory gaze. The silence is eerie at first, but it is not a reverent silence. It does not comfort you. Pity cannot lift this sentence. It only deepens the humiliation, for pity is an acknowledgement that you are utterly powerless to resist what is being done to you. Your family does not appear. Perhaps they chose to stay away to preserve their own dignity. Perhaps they were forbidden to come. Or perhaps they simply could not bear the sight. Whatever the reason, you know now. It is the silence of expectation, the stillness before the main event begins. Your sandals scrape against the paving stones, each step ringing out louder than it should, magnified by the hush that follows you. The city listens to your downfall in the rhythm of your feet. The priests do not look at you. Their eyes remain fixed straight ahead, their hands folded piously, their faces as blank as carved statues. They walk as though the act of leading you to your living grave is not an act of cruelty, but just another ceremony, an extension of their sacred office. You feel more like an object than a person, an offering being carried along by a ritual as inexorable as the Tiberi's flow. The brutal irony is not lost on you. For years, you walked in processions as a holy guardian of Rome's flame. Now, you walk in one as a scapegoat, your sanctity inverted into a public sham. The city, you note with a detached bitterness, watches both roles with the exact same fascination. The crowd thickens as you pass into the heart of the forum. Men and women jostle for a better position, craning their necks to see you. Children sit perched on their father's shoulders, their small hands pointing. The same voices that once whispered blessings now murmur with speculation, with delight, or with harsh judgment. You cannot catch all the words, but fragments drift through the air like poison darts, impure, betrayal, cursed. Some voices sound triumphant, others disappointed, as though your fall has robbed them of the comforting certainty that perfect sanctity could ever be preserved. Their gazes pierce you like 1,000 tiny spears, stripping away every layer of the dignity you once carried so proudly. The white robes you wear, once symbols of your exalted purity, now feel like a cruel, mocking costume. They mark you more clearly than heavy chains would, broadcasting your supposed guilt in their pristine folds of spotless fabric. You force yourself into a rigid stillness, each breath measured, though your chest tightens with every step. You know the crowd will interpret your composure however it wishes. Some murmur that you are hardened and unrepentant. Others say you look broken. None of them, not a single one, says you look innocent. You pass by familiar places, the towering steps of the Senate House, the shady colonnades of the Basilica, the small shrines where you once laid offerings of flowers and grain. Each sight twists like a knife in your memory, a painful reminder that you once walked these very stones as a figure of reverence. Now, the same stones echo with the sound of your downfall. Even the sacred flame, you know, still burns brightly behind you in the temple, steady and eternal, utterly indifferent to the fate of the girl who tended it so faithfully. Rome is making it brutally clear that the goddess will survive without you, that the city thrives on continuity, even as it erases its individual servants. With a certainty that chills you to the bone, that you walk utterly alone. The city has claimed you fully, and no ties of blood or affection remain to soften your fall. You are Rome's sacrifice, and Rome does not share its offerings. At last, you arrive at the place of punishment, the so-called mercy that Rome grants to its fallen priestesses. They will not spill your blood. You watch their figures disappear into shadow, their voices fading until the chamber is utterly silent again. A sliver of daylight lingers at the top of the stairwell, a pale, thin reminder of the world you have already lost. You know it will not last. You hear the workers above begin their task. Stones scrape against one another. Dust sifts down from the ceiling, and the light begins to narrow. You tilt your head upward, watching as the circle of sky contracts. The entrance to the pit yawns before you, a dark wound cut into the earth just beyond the city's bustling heart. It is a crude, underground chamber, a dark mouth in the ground framed by rough-hewn stone. The stairway descends into a darkness that the bright Roman sun cannot penetrate. You pause at the threshold, your eyes adjusting to the shadow, and for a terrifying moment, it feels as though you are peering into the entrance of the underworld itself. And there, in the suffocating dark beneath the bustling streets, a life is erased. The city above continues, its markets and temples and arenas teeming with a life that has already forgotten the girl it sealed in the earth. The sacred flame she tended still burns, guarded by other hands, a symbol of an empire's continuity that is built upon the silent sacrifices of the forgotten. Rome prides itself on its piety, on avoiding the sacrilege of spilling a Vestal's blood, but standing here, you know that the true cruelty of this punishment lies not in its violence, but in its silence. The priest's hands tighten on your arms, not harshly, but with a firm, inexorable pressure that makes any thought of refusal impossible, its edges darkening as each heavy block is lowered into place. The sound is methodical, merciless. The light shrinks further, a pale disk, then a thin line, then a final, fleeting sliver. You hold your breath, straining to keep that last trace of day in your sight. Then, the final stone slides into place with a dull, heavy thud. The shaft of light vanishes. The earth closes over you. The chamber is whole again, its silence absolute. Darkness wraps you in its cold embrace. Their monotonous chants continue, sanctifying each motion of your descent. No one breaks the script to acknowledge you as a girl, a human being. They are merely cogs in the great, unfeeling mechanism of tradition, and that tradition has claimed you. The stairway is narrow and cold beneath your sandals. Each step echoes, the sound dampened as you move deeper, until the noise of the city above fades entirely. If you'd like to support the creation of more stories like this, you can find a link to the Patreon in the description below. Liking this video and subscribing to the channel helps more people find their way to these lost tales. And please, feel free to leave a comment with another piece of forgotten history you'd like to explore. Until next time, sleep well. The air grows heavier with each pace, thick with the scent of damp stone and freshly turned soil. At the bottom, the passage opens into a small, cramped chamber. Your eyes strain in the dim, flickering light of a single lamp that has been left for you. The walls are rough, unadorned, built not to honor, but simply to contain. The ceiling hangs low, forcing you to bow your head. The silence here is absolute, broken only by the hiss of the small lamp and the faint, ragged rasp of your own breathing. You take in the furnishings one by one. A narrow pallet of rough wood and straw rests against one wall. A small table beside it bears a single loaf of bread and a clay jug of water. These are not gifts of mercy, they are tokens meant to disguise the state's cruelty. They give the appearance of care while denying you any true chance of survival. Rome can congratulate itself on sparing your blood while condemning you to a slower, quieter, more terrifying death. The priests guide you into the center of the room, place you before the pallet, and their chants rise to a final, solemn cadence. They will leave you here, and the earth will close behind them, sealing you in an eternal silence. They finish their final words, bow their heads, and retreat up the stairs without a single backward glance. You watch their figures disappear into shadow, their voices fading until the chamber is utterly silent again. A sliver of daylight lingers at the top of the stairwell, a pale, thin reminder of the world you have already lost. You know it will not last. You hear the workers above begin their task. Stones scrape against one another. Her story serves as a chilling reminder that in a world that demands perfection, the line between reverence and condemnation is as thin as a whisper. And that the silence of a tomb can speak far louder than the prayers of an entire city. Thank you for joining this quiet descent into a forgotten corner of history.